Welcome back to Business Office Specialist. In today's video, we're going to look at some features that are going to help us to format the layout of our document a little bit better. There's several features that we're going to talk about today to help us format the layout of our document. The first one is a header and footer. So every document in a word processing system like Google Docs is going to have what's called a margin. The margin is the white space around the edges of a document. This white space helps printers so that we're not bleeding all the way to the edge, because printers often can't print all the way to the end of a page, and it also makes the page more visually appealing. It's easier to read a document that has some white space around it. The white space at the top and the bottom of the page has a special name. So the top margin and the bottom margin are called a header and a footer, respectively. The header and the footer can be used to put information on a document that you would like to have spread over all of the pages of the document. So one of the default settings for a header and a footer is that anything you put in there gets printed automatically on every single page of a document. So if you have a multiple page document and you want something there like your name or class period or something like that, then the header is a good place to put that information, and automatically it will show up on every new page. So by default, you don't have access to the header. You just begin inside of the body itself, and that's where you're typing. If you want to type something into the header, then you're going to come up to that white space or margin at the very top of the page and double click. That will open up the header section. You know you're in the header section because you've got that gray bar across the screen that says header. So for today, all we're going to put into the header of the document is the title. We're going to call this Styles, Breaks, and Columns, because those are the three features that we're going to be talking about in today's video. So go ahead and open up your header and type that into the document. When you're ready to leave the header, all you have to do is go back to the body below that gray header bar and click once, and you'll go into the rest of the document. If you want to go back to the header, double click in that white space up at the top and it gets you back inside the header. The next thing that I would like to discuss is a font style. Font styles are specific pre-built styles for your text that help indicate important pieces of your document so that your readers can follow your organization of the document better. For example, Styles, Breaks, and Columns is considered our title of the document, but it's written in the same font size and style as everything else in the document, so it really doesn't stand out as being a title. So I'm going to highlight that and change its font style to be a title style. Font styles are located on your ribbon bar at the top, right next to your fonts here. So if I come up and click on Styles, you can see that right now it is set for your normal text. That is the default text setting for all of your paragraphs and sentences and things that you're writing. Most of your text is going to be in a normal text style. That's why we call it normal. However, this is going to be a title, so we're going to come down and select the title font style. And immediately it's going to change the size and boldness of that text to indicate that this is now the title of our document. Now that I've changed that, I'm going to close out of the header and go back to my usual body. There's a few other styles that I would like to try. Right below the title, I have Random Help Instructions. That's because this information came from random text from a help guide for Microsoft Word. I would like that to become my subtitle for this document, so I'm going to come back up to the top to my styles and change it to subtitle. Now you can see that it changed the color of the text and made it italicized. That's how Google Docs indicates a subtitle. Now the rest of the styles inside of your font styles are all what's called a heading. A heading is the title to a specific section or paragraph of a document. So when you have a really long document, oftentimes there are headings to indicate different sections of it. You can think of it kind of like a book. Books are split up into lots of different sections. Oftentimes we call these chapters. And each chapter has a heading that either says Chapter 1 or maybe has a title that indicates that new chapter. Then inside of the chapter, sometimes you have subchapters or subsections of that chapter with their own headings as well. So if I go back to the font styles, you can see that I have a heading 1, which is your main heading for a section. And then if there's subsections underneath those, then you could have a heading 2 or a heading 3, and it kind of acts like an organizational tree to help us understand how the information relates to everything around it. So inside of my document today, there are 4 small sections: online videos, headers and footers, themes, and cool new buttons. I want to make those titles heading styles so that my readers will know that that is the heading for that section. So I'm going to highlight online video and select the heading 1 style. Now, my document is short enough that there aren't any subsections underneath online video, so I don't need to use heading 2 or 3. For today's examples, we'll just use the heading 1 style, and I'm going to go back and make each of my section titles a heading by changing the font style to heading 1. And you can do that as well on your document while you're following along. All right, so now my document is a lot easier for my readers to read, understand, and follow because it has some organization to it. It is very obvious because of the styling what my title is and my subtitle, and then it's easy to find the headings to each section. The other cool thing about using font styles is that not only does it create a visually easy format for my readers to follow, but it actually does literally create an outline for my readers to use. So in Google Docs, off on the far left side, you see a small square icon that looks kind of like your bullet list icon that we've learned about previously. If I click on that, it will open up my document outline, and it will show me each of the headers. So as I've created headings using the heading 1 style, it's automatically added those headings into my outline and recognizing those as sections of my document. Now, if I were to click on any of these headings in my outline, it will automatically jump me to that location inside my document. So this is a great tool that makes it easier for you and your readers to navigate through the document and jump to the important sections they're trying to find without having to scroll a long ways if you have a really long document. So especially with long documents like books or long reports that you might write, having headings that are using the heading style instead of just you bolding them on your own is useful to create this outline that is really user-friendly for those that are reading the document. Now, if you want to hide the outline, there's the arrow pointing to the left at the very top. If you click on that, it will hide the outline from view, and you can go back to your usual view. So that's font styles. The next thing I want to look at is breaks and columns. So in this document, I would like to create 2 different columns because we're creating this kind of like a news article or a newsletter. And oftentimes they have different columns for the different articles that are written. So if we wanted to add columns, up at the very top under Format, we can change the format of our document to include some columns. So if I hover over columns, you have 3 options: 1, 2, or 3 columns. We don't go beyond 3 because honestly on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, anything more than 3 and your text doesn't really fit on the page. So 3 is our max. For today's example, we're going to do 2. Now as soon as I do that, the title of the document remains across the entire document because it's located up in the header. And the header of the document is not subject to any of the formatting that happens in the body. But you can see that my subtitle did get squashed into the first column. I don't want that to happen. I would like the subtitle to remain across the whole page just like the title does. Now I could move it into the header of the document if I wanted to, but then it would show up on every single page, and I don't want that. I just want the title on every page. So there's another way we can do this. I'm going to undo my column setting by pressing Control-Z. You could also go up to Formatting and choose 1 column, but Control-Z is faster, so I'm going to do that. So what I really want to do is have 2 columns in my document, but I wanted to start right here where my mouse is at online video. From there down, I want 2 columns. From there up, I want just 1. In order for us to do that, we're going to have to split this document into separate sections. That is what a break is for. A break creates an invisible line in your document that will separate it into two different sections. Now there's several different kinds of breaks that we have in a document. There are section breaks, column breaks, and page breaks. What we're looking for here is a section break because we want two different sections of the document with their own unique formatting. So we're going to go to the Insert menu option up here at the top. That's where we'll find all of our breaks. So we're going to insert a new break. So we'll scroll down to break, hover over that, and we are looking for a continuous section break. So I will choose the continuous section break. And you can see that it added a space between random help instructions and online video. That space is where the invisible line is located. So now we have this invisible line right here, and anything above that invisible line has one set of formatting, anything below the invisible line has another set of formatting. So now with my mouse still on online video, because that's the section I want to add the columns to, I'm going to come to Format, choose Columns, and do my two columns again. Now I have two columns, but only in this lower section of my page. My subtitle still stretches across the entire page the way I wanted it to, and it looks so much nicer. Now, our columns are really nicely formatted and easy to read. There's this nice white gap between the two columns, but I would like to add a little more style to this. I would like to have a vertical line that divides the two columns. In my opinion, that looks a lot more professional and a lot easier to read. So if we wanted to add that vertical line, we go back to Format, back to Columns, and then we choose More Options down at the bottom of the column submenu. So here we can adjust the spacing of each column, we can change how many columns we're using, and we can also check the box to add the line between the columns. That's the only one that I want to change right now. So I'm going to click Apply, and now there's this light gray vertical line that stretches between my columns. Don't you think that looks so much better? Now, that's one of the breaks that we're talking about today. The other two breaks that we were talking about were the column break and the page break. A column break moves whatever text your mouse is next to a new column. So it forces it to go to a new column. You can see once my text runs out of space, instead of going to a new page, it will automatically float to the next column. But what if I wanted to move it someplace else? Right now I've got 1, 2, 3, and most of 4 sections in the first column and only part of one section in the second column. So it looks very lopsided, and that's not very aesthetically pleasing to look at. So I'm going to come to Themes, and I want 2 of my sections in the first column and the rest of them to show up in the third column, so it balances out a little. So with my mouse next to Themes, I'm going to move Themes to a new column by coming up to Insert, going to Breaks, and inserting a column break. So now I have 2 sections on the first column, and I've forced Themes to a new column by using a column break. So now Themes and everything down below it show up on the right column. Now the other break that we have is a page break. A page break, just like a column break forces text to a new column, a page break forces text to a new page. So let's, just for educational purposes, move Cool New Buttons to a new page. In real life I probably wouldn't do that because it would make it look really weird and there's no need to have it there. But so that we can practice these breaks, we're going to move Cool New Buttons to a new page using the page break. So if we go up to Insert, Break, there is a page break option. You can also see to the right of it that there is a shortcut for it, Control and the Enter button. So instead of clicking this, I'm actually going to use the shortcut. I find that of all of the breaks that we're learning about today, the page break is the one that I use most often. And so I like the shortcut key, Control Enter, to force text to a new page using a page break. So I'm going to press Control, and while holding Control, press Enter, and that brings Cool New Buttons to a new page. And you can see that as we created the new page, automatically the title that we created in our header is included on that page because, again, anything in the header and the footer automatically show up on every page by default. All right, so now we've learned about font styles and the header, and we've learned about breaks and columns. Since we're talking about articles today and we're pretending to create an article, the last thing I'd like to show you is a special kind of alignment that is specifically used for articles and newsletters and magazines and things like that. And this is called a justified alignment. So if you look at our alignment right now, remember alignment is where the text is positioned on the page. All of our text right now is a left alignment. This means that the text begins at the left side of the page, goes until it runs out of room, and then automatically moves to a new line beginning at the left side of the page as well. And we've learned in previous videos that we can change that so that it's centered evenly in the middle of the document, like this, or maybe starting at the right side of the page and moving left. But whichever one we choose, there's always these jagged edges along the side where we run out of room. So if you look at our first paragraph here, U is a little bit further out than online because we ran out of room on that second line. So you get this jagged edge along here. If you look at a newspaper article or a magazine article, you may notice that those jagged edges don't exist. What we've done instead is justified our text alignment, meaning that we evenly space out every word so that it begins and it ends at the exact same place. So it's going to adjust all of the spacing between each word so that every line ends at exactly the same place and creates a nice square box that looks nice when you're dealing with articles, especially in multiple columns. So we're going to change everything to be justified alignment. The easiest way to select everything is to use our shortcut Control-A to select all. And then up on the ribbon, we have our different alignment options. Right here, we have left, middle, or centered, right, and the square one is justified. So I'm going to click on justified alignment, and you can see how that makes everything a nice square box that evenly begins and ends at exactly the same place for each line of the document. So that's justified alignment. All right, so just to recap on what we've learned in today's video. We learned that the header and the footer are the top and bottom margins of every page, and that anything that you add to a header or footer will, by default, repeat itself on every page of your document. You can access the header or footer by double-clicking on the top or bottom margins of the page, and you can exit it by clicking back into the body. We also learned about font styles. Font styles are pre-built styling to help you organize your document better. They include things like titles, subtitles, and headings. Also, when you create font styles, they automatically get entered as sections of your document into your outline that is found on the left-hand side of your document window so that you can navigate your document a lot easier. We talked about 3 different types of breaks today. A section break, the one we used was continuous section break, which creates an invisible line that breaks your document into different sections so that you can format them individually without affecting the other parts of the document. We also learned about the column break, which forces text to a new column, and a page break, which forces text to a new page and has the shortcut of Control-Enter. And lastly, we learned how to create columns from the Format menu and also learned how to create a vertical line between your columns to make them look more professional. To learn more tools and features in the Google Suite family of apps, check out more of my videos on YouTube or visit ToriNorman.com.